So we're going to talk about the brief today. And as I have done every week, and I will continue as we complete lecture material, I will always be putting that into context of how that relates to what we're doing. Excuse me. So by now, obviously, you have or should have done the HubSpot and submitted that to the Moodle link. That was due in week 4, and it was the cert in social media marketing. So those of you who did the wrong one, guess what? You showed up to the wrong exam, just like, if you went to a childcare exam instead of one of your regular exams, that's your mistake. So that was week 4. Week 6 is the next one due, and that's the part 1 of your group project, and that's worth 10%. Not because it's not important, but because mistakes you make in this one, hopefully you'll learn from that and then benefit later on in the 25%. So you'll get feedback and it won't hit you that hard if you've made some errors. Referencing is the typical one that people will make mistakes with based on previous experience, even though repeatedly every week I have done and will continue to remind you that referencing is very important. If you discuss other people's ideas without referencing, you're plagiarizing, and you could get 0 for the whole thing, if depending on the level. Excuse me. So in this scenario, you are marketing consultants. Excuse me. Your marketing consultants engaged by the college. So the college is your client, the degree is your product. So you have to highlight both sides of the degree, and don't ignore that it is also a business degree in a business school, in a business faculty, and also the coaching side, which is obviously important too. So the client has asked you to design an IMC, Integrated Marketing Communications Plan. So we have covered material that hopefully you should understand now what an IMC is. And if you haven't, then look back over some recordings or read the notes on that section in Moodle, that first topic 1 on Moodle. So you need to identify target population. So who are the key people we want to communicate to with regard to this degree? Is there more than one segment? So having a look at what the possible segments are, and the definition of separate segment is that it should be met with a separate marketing mix. So the 7 Ps or the 4 Ps, once you go through them, they should give the same answer. And if you have 2 groups that are identified, and when you start going through the 4 Ps or 7 Ps, depending on what's appropriate, if it's all largely the same, then you can say, well, actually, they are the same group. So in tutorials, we were discussing whether or not the school kids in 4th, 5th, and 6th year are a separate segment from people who are doing PLC courses or other kinds of courses after leaving cert, and then following that, so diploma or certificate type courses, who then decide to start this degree program. So are they a separate segment, or do they go in with the school CAO population? Excuse me. And then another potential segment are parents and teachers and career guidance counselors or teachers. Do we communicate with them differently? Do they do different things online, listen to different radio stations, interested in different aspects of what the degree will give the user? So, so that's all to do with looking at the population. So within that, a lot of research would be expected, looking up perhaps Irish Times articles on trends in um, trends in um, the courses, CAO courses being chosen and so on, different articles, some scholarly articles, but the Irish Times every year is always keeping track on trends in education and so on, different things like that, and general information about the segment to further your understanding of how to communicate with them, where to communicate, what way, should it be video, audio, just print, well, that's kind of decisions you make those decisions based on your knowledge of the people within that target population, target segment. So that's all in that first section. So understanding the positioning statement, and then it's moving on to the actual message. So it informs. And then persuades the target population to put the degree as number one on the CAO list. So that is the transaction that is being looked for. So in marketing a normal commercial product, the end of the line transaction is a purchase. In this case, the equivalent of purchase is number one on the CAO list. So this campaign reminds the target population of the benefits of doing this degree and future opportunities. So you need to understand everything about the degree and what aspects of the degree each target segment wants to hear about, because there are so many aspects. Just like if you're buying a mobile phone and you go online or you go into a shop, and they don't start listing 100 features when they're comparing one phone to another. They make an assumption of the specific features you're interested in hearing, or maybe they ask you what features you're interested in hearing about, and then they'll compare them just on those 3 features perhaps. So you need to figure out what are the features of the degree. So what are the elements of the actual course content that people perhaps want to hear about? Which population wants to hear about job opportunities? Which job opportunities are they interested in hearing about? All of that kind of thing. So some of that information can perhaps be gotten from speaking to lecturers or people who are later in the degree, and perhaps speaking to other people, maybe first years who have just recently made the decision, what helped them make the decision. So all of that is important. So the deliverables are divided into 2 submissions. So we've got submission 1 and submission 2. So the first of the group submissions is due in week 6. And there's only 2 parts in that. So segmentation and positioning. So this is where you tell us all about these target groups. You look up your information, and then out of that, you figure out what's that general vibe that you're looking for. What is that inspirational idea that you want to convey the vibe of this degree to your target population. So the Nike we keep talking about, Just Do It campaign and everything that fell out of that. So, what is it? If you were to sum up the degree and sum up what you want these people to think about the degree and how they compare our degree to other degrees in other colleges, what would that be if you sum it up in a sentence? So, and then from that, so again, from that Just Do It idea in Nike, there is a master brief developed. So we went through the master brief for Nike in the tutorials, and you can read it yourselves on, if you weren't there, you can look it up on the Moodle page. You can look up other templates of creative briefs as well. There are many. If you just Google, you get lots of different random ones coming up. And it's a taster. It's the overall outline of what's going to come later on. So later on, we're going to flesh out our IMC, specifically looking at advertising, PR, and sponsorship. Now, obviously, there are only 3 elements, but we're trying to keep things relatively simple. And a lot can be included in those 3 elements. So this, before we expand in week 9 submission, that's the second part is due in week 9. We just want the summary. What's that outline? So it's a page or 2 broken down into lots of different headings. And it gives that vibe. How does that vibe carry through the different elements of the IMC? So it's just giving a taster of what's to come. It's not the full detail, but it's talking about the tone and roughly the message and so on. So as I said, look up some examples of creative briefs. Remember to reference those examples and yeah, reference whichever document you're taking the headings from. And yeah, so they're the sections. Now, the first section needs to be done before the second section. You cannot have half of the team going off separately and writing the creative brief while the other half does the segmentation and positioning. The people doing the creative brief need to know what is in the first section in order to do it. So they have to be done in that sequence. Get everybody sorted on getting segmentation and positioning section done first, and then move on. So if you haven't started working on it already, get started. So 85 marks between those 2 sections, and then 15 for all the how it comes together and so on. So that's the week 6 submission, then week 9 submission, 25% of the overall grade. You will have feedback before you submit this of the previous one. So hopefully you will be able to incorporate that feedback and not make the same mistakes again. So again, referencing is going to be very important. Excuse me. In-text citations plus the reference list. If you have one and not the other, it's still plagiarism. A reference in a reference list is no good unless you know which point in the document is coming from that reference. And an in-text citation on its own without the corresponding reference in the reference list And it just tells you that a point has been taken from somewhere, but there isn't enough information with the in-text citation to know where it actually came from, so nobody can verify that information. And again, it's plagiarism. You are not giving full credit for that. So look up referencing guides if you can't remember. This is your 4th semester in a university degree course. You are expected to know and to know how to reference at this point. And if you haven't figured, if you've gotten away with it so far, you are expected. It is your responsibility to look up and refresh how to do it. The library have a lot of resources. You can go in there, you can ask them to go through it if you need that. You can also ask through your class rep if you would like me to arrange somebody from the library to come in and give a master class on referencing, if the class as a whole want it. Okay, so the IMC, we have the broad outline from the previous section. We've got the master brief, and now in the submission 2, it's about expanding it out. So the advertising campaign, 30, PR, and sponsorship, they're all equal marks. And it's about expanding and giving the actual detail. So it's not about saying do TikTok, it's about giving an example of what, so you either show a link of here's a video on TikTok that is in the same style that we're recommending to use. And it's also about having all the references to support. So why are you mentioning TikTok? If you're saying, I don't think the college is already on TikTok. So if you're suggesting to use Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is, firstly, you have to support that idea with an argument as to why. So firstly, because 70% of this age range, which is the majority of the target population, spend more time on TikTok than on any other social media network, and or they visit X number of times per day, or some kind of statistic on the usage of that social media, and that supports why you're saying we should use it or your client should use it. It's not about choosing what you're comfortable with, it's about choosing what your target population is comfortable with. So similarly, if you're looking at the group that has the teachers and parents in it, is that going to be different message in a different place, same message but in a different place, or different message, same place? So what social media are the potential students using? What social media are the influencers, the parents and teachers and so on? So that's what we mean by substantiate your choice of media. You have to show. So again, I'm expecting a lot of references in this submission because there should be all sorts of stats included as to how much time they spend online, where they're spending their time, what are they doing, what kind of media are they consuming, how long, are if they're mostly consuming videos, that could be a reference to say, that this age group prefer videos than reading something or memes or whatever. If they're watching videos, how long is the average video that they prefer to watch? That sort of thing. So again, lots of references backing up everything you decide to do or suggest for your client to do. And so in advertising, I know I've been talking about social media a lot, but there are a lot of other aspects to advertising. So the social media that we pay to boost the post, that's when it becomes advertising. If we are just using our own page and putting out content that just our followers are seeing, then that falls under PR. So there's a lot of crossover between advertising and PR, as you can imagine, because we can initially post things and just send them out there and then see the ones that we get good engagement from already through PR. Maybe then we pay extra and boost those posts to have a wider viewing, wider exposure outside the followers. Old-fashioned press release is still a part of a PR campaign, but obviously social media is a large part of any PR campaign these days. So two sides of the PR. The campaign has to include 5 different tools in PR. So look up the notes, look up the recording, and make sure you include 5 different tools within that. And so two of those must be press release and social media. You can choose what the other 3 are from the long list of options. So, and then a sponsorship proposal. So this is where you are suggesting that the college sponsor something or someone. It's not the other way around, okay? So is there something that would help raise the profile and draw attention to our degree program, that if the college, for example, a local park run, maybe it's a catchment area where a lot of students already come from nearby schools to the college, and particularly to this program, well, then that might be a good idea. Or are there other events that can draw attention to the degree through the college sponsoring something? So that's what you have to think about. So a person, a team, or event that the college will sponsor. And so that link between that person or event or whatever and the college and the degree is going to be beneficial. And so you have to talk about that. So you want to look up some references about how sponsorship works and how it can have positive engagement with a target population and so on. So again, every section should have references as to how you do something and why you're doing it, and supporting your idea. And then the final 10% is how it all comes together, presentation of the document, appropriate file name. How many times do you have to be told the file name is not for your records? The file name is for my records. When you're submitting a CV to a job interview or a job application, you don't name your CV or CV coaching. And probably some of you do, but that's most likely if they have a lot of applications, they're looking for any excuse to just dump some of the CVs, and that's one handy way to rule out. Put your name, put an identifier in the file name that the person receiving the CV, or in this case, the report, can identify it when all of the classes files go into the same folder. I don't want to have a folder full of reports named CA1, for example, very imaginative. So figure it out. Academic writing is also included in there. So the learning outcomes covered across the CA are 1, 2, and 3. the word count for part 1, quite a wide range, 500 to 1,000, a very short report, but you need to be on point. And again, part 2 is also a short report, but a bit bigger than the first one, 1,000 to 2,000. So when you get a range in a word count, that does not also include a plus or minus. If it's one number, you can assume a plus or minus 10%. If you're given a range, that is the range. Okay. Okay, so the other various guidelines you can read through yourselves. Plagiarism, I've already mentioned. Late penalty, as always, 10% per day. And that's standard Faculty of Business guidelines. So, report part 1, due Monday, week 6. Report part 2, due Monday, week 9. And all the tutorials will be dedicated in part to discussing the CA. So bring your questions to the tutorials.